Finally, after 7 long years, the stars have aligned and the gods have graced us with a brand new Saints Row game. Now, I know the Saints Row franchise has been a little rocky as of late. The Saints Row the Third remaster wasn't all that great, and Agents of Mayhem... Okay, I know I'm stretching with this one a bit, but it has almost every Saints Row character in it, and it has a giant floor on its logo, so you know what? I'm counting it. It was kind of a steaming pile. But this is the one. Volition finally got their act together. Right? When I saw the announcement for a brand new Saints Row game, I was ecstatic, to say the least. Saints Row is one of my favorite franchises, and Saints Row the Third is probably one of my favorite games of all time, like ever. But when I first saw that trailer, let's just say the emotions I felt weren't happy ones. I was a little bummed the new game was going to be a reboot, but that wasn't my biggest critique. From the get-go, the game felt like it was heavily influenced by, I don't really even know the best way to put this, the Fortnite funnies.
This isn't Fortnite funnies.
I guess the best way to put this is Gen Z humor, and I don't mean the good Gen Z humor like this. I'm talking about the Gen Z humor that corporations and marketing departments throw around on their branded social media. My expectations for this game were already pretty low, and I'm disappointed to say that they were met in spades. I really tried to get myself to finish this game, but I just couldn't. I just could not. With buggy controls, outdated gameplay, stale missions, it just, all of it piled on to just make a really unenjoyable experience, and I just couldn't do it. And even the story and the main missions wasn't even that great, and I know it's a Saints Row game. They don't have phenomenal Last of Us style stories, but even the older games like Saints Row the Third and Saints Row 4 managed to pack some pretty decent storylines into their games, a lot of humor, and a couple emotional parts here and there. And when you look at the kind of games that the Saints Row games, are, it's really surprising that they were able to be that great to begin with. As this is a refresh of the story of the 3rd Street Saints, we see the progression of the Saints from a few street thugs to international icons. The biggest difference with this reboot and the original games is the motives of our characters, Nina, Eli, Kevin, and whatever abomination you decide to make in your playthrough. Originally, the founding Saints wanted 2 things: money and power. Shandi, Pierce, Gat, and the original boss were just some gangbangers who wanted to exploit the world as much as possible. In this reboot, the Saints are a lot more down-to-earth and relatable.
I can tell you love it.
Okay, I don't have to love it. I have to pay my student loans.
I'm in.
Constantly talk about paying rent and paying off student loans, the only 2 things young people have to worry about ever.
So, is this how it's gonna be every time we have to pay rent?
We have to get better at this rent thing or we'll never get to do karaoke again.
The game pokes a bit of fun at modern culture, nothing new for a Saints Row game. All the different side missions and diversions are used to make fun of the gig economy with very little subtlety. There's even an Uber/Tinder parody called Wanted, where you can become a freelance killer for hire. I know making fun of what's popular is like a major facet of comedy, but anytime I hear shows or movies or games talk about trending things like TikTok or whatever trend is popular right now, it just irrationally pisses me off. I don't know why. Maybe it's because when any new show does this, it doesn't feel like they're making fun of it. It's just that they're trying to pander to the lowest common denominator in the young crowd, which is popular right now. Focusing back on the characters, I kind of like their subtle change in overall personality. It gives the characters a bit more depth, but like I said before, it's just blatant as hell pandering. The game really tries to get you to like its main cast, and to a degree this works. There are a couple emotional parts where you do feel some degree of empathy, but mostly they feel like they just exist to move the bare bones story forward. Honestly, this really isn't that different to how the original games handled their characters, but the difference between the older games and this game is that I actually liked the characters from the old ones, like Johnny Gat, Shandi, and Pierce. I could not care less about these new characters. The enemy gangs are pretty shallow as well, especially compared to how Morningstar, the Luchadors, and the Deckers were represented in Saints Row the Third. In the reboot, we have Los Panteros, the Idols, and Marshall. Los Panteros is your typical Latin-inspired street gang similar to the Luchadors. They don't really have a lot going for them aside from, hey, let's commit some crimes and race some cars. The Idols are hyper-stylized neon anarchists. A walking subversion of their own existence, they preach the end of capitalism and tyranny, but spend their time partying in mansions and subjugating innocent people.
Get ready for a whole new world with no pharaohs, no gods, no idols, but us.
Basically, they're just a pink and blue version of r/Gen Zedong. And lastly, we have Marshall. Marshall is basically this game's equivalent to Stag from Saints Row III or Ultor from Saints Row 2. A massively overfunded paramilitary organization that has more money and guns than it does common sense. Saints Row III did an exceptional job of making the enemy gangs feel like major players in the game's story. In this new game, they just feel like nothing but faceless goons. Even the idle gang leaders are literally just faceless goons. The game world itself feels equally as shallow. Across the city of Santo Eliso, there are a variety of environments and locales that on the surface make for a very interesting cityscape. Side missions will take you across Santo Eliso's environments, but much of the story takes place in this area here. It's obvious they put a good bit of effort into designing their world, but it just goes unused, and as a result feels unlived in. One of the best things about this game, and one of the only few good things, is how deep the customization is. The character creator is easily the best in the series. You can make all kinds of messed up stuff in this. So of course I had to be funny and unoriginal. Customization extends way deeper than just being able to make disgusting characters. Obviously outfits are a big deal, but I had to rip that cosplay, you know? Vehicle customization is fairly in-depth. Vehicles have a few different body mods you can select from and mix and match to your heart's content. I was really impressed with the paints and finishes. There's a broad selection of paint types like matte, metallic, and candy, but then you can fine-tune these to adjust how shiny or metallic a specific paint is. Weapon customization also got a massive overhaul and is greatly improved over how it was in Saints Row 4. Now instead of just a few random skins, you can go in and customize all the details of your weapon, adjusting colors, adding decals, and yes, there are still different kinds of weapon skins. A detail I really liked was that you can change the entire model of a weapon to a different one you already owned. So if you liked the looks of one gun but had a different one that was more powerful, you could have the best of both worlds. It said that most of this in my experience with the game was pretty worthless. I had quite a few issues with bugs during my time with the game, and they dug their way into every nook and cranny they could find, and it really sucked because they affected my weapon customizations a lot. Every time I would boot up the game, random weapons would just have their skins and designs completely shirked away. I don't know why this would happen, and after it happened after the third or fourth time, I just gave up. It wasn't even worth trying anymore. I messed around with the vehicle editor a good bit too, but I quickly gave up working on my cars as well. The game, as far as I could tell, has no way you can call in vehicles, and at least if there is, I'd never unlocked it. Occasionally, a mission would start at your headquarters, so you could just go off to your garage and grab a car from there, but mostly I was stuck just using random vehicles off the street, or whatever car the game decided to give me for the mission I was on. Since the game wouldn't let me use the vehicles I customized, I gave up working on them too. Since two of the biggest things you spend money on in a Saints Row game were pretty much worthless to me, I didn't spend a lot of time doing the side content in the game, which is a shame because there's a pretty good variety of different side diversions you can get into. Wingsuit Saboteur was a fairly interesting one where you glide in on a wingsuit and take out different satellite dishes with explosives. I remember this thing being touted like it was a major new gameplay element, and I think outside of using it in one story mission, I only ever actually used it during the game one other time. Atcha was another side mission I kinda liked a bit. You go to different locations, and depending on how bad of a review you leave, more and more enemies will spawn in and attack. Looking back, it's not as impressive as it originally seemed because it's pretty much just go to place and kill baddies. Most of these side gigs are pretty simple diversions like drive car to place, or ride in car to place and shoot enemies while you do so. Later in the game, you eventually unlock the Empire table, which opens up criminal ventures. These are real estate ventures you place on the map that unlock more side gigs for you to do. A lot of these just boil down to find a car and bring it back, but a few unlock actually entertaining missions like the classic insurance fraud mode from the original games. In the beginning, I'll admit, I was excited to play the game and I was actually having fun with it for a while. The story missions were bombastic and absolutely over the top, climbing on jets, riding on cars, shooting rockets, fighting your way through a convoy of death. It was really fun. And for a teeny bit there, it kind of felt like I was playing Saints Row III. Then the mediocrity set in. While the game has its set piece missions, the majority are just go from point A to point B and shoot whatever enemy gang shows up. It really sucks too because when this game does things right, it's actually fun, but so many things are so superficial, a lot of the missions just feel like filler. The bare bones gameplay doesn't help either. To put it simply, this game plays like Saints Row the Third. Now, that might sound good. Saints Row the Third is a great game. I've said nothing but good things about it for this entire video. But the game played well for 2011. The gunplay is, for the most part, solid, but by today's standards is pretty basic. The reboot pretty much copies its gameplay, but does little to modernize or streamline it. As with the earlier games, you get XP and level up as you do more missions and activities. This unlocks new active skills and passive perks as you advance your character. Neither of these, I felt, did nothing to improve the gameplay experience. The game incorporates a flow system where the more you fight, the more flow you build up. You then spend this flow to use active abilities. Using your run-of-the-mill special moves you can use in combat to give you a hand. Things like smoke screens and grenades that are supposed to give you a tactical advantage in gunfights. However, I cannot think of one time I actually needed to use any of these abilities. Perks were equally as useless. These are supposed to provide passive buffs, but they're so insignificant I couldn't even tell I had them equipped. The actual gunplay itself can at times also be a bit frustrating. Certain weapons with low fire rates like the pump-action shotgun or the revolver have this weird issue where if you spam the fire button enough, your character will keep shooting long after you let go of the button. This results in a lot of misfires and wasted ammo and makes the gunplay feel exceptionally sluggish. This is only compounded with the fact that sometimes your controls will just stop working. It's really fun when you go to get into a car and escape the cops, but your accelerate button just decides to screw off. Or you're in the middle of a fight and the shoot button just stops working, forcing you to load a save and start the whole fight over again. Not that that happened to me or anything. Enemy AI is also really rough. In fights, enemies mostly just run around randomly, with melee enemies swarming you at any opportunity. And occasionally the AI will just drop a loaf in its pants and completely bug out. Trust me when I say this is only funny when it happens the first few times. I hoped these issues would be patched out, and the last time I played the game there was a pretty substantial update, but the only thing I noticed that it did differently was make my game run like ass. I really hoped that this would be the game that would bring the Saints Row franchise back into the limelight, but if anything, this was just the final nail in the coffin. The vision of the original games has long been buried under a pile of modern funny humor and just random swears and jokes about ball sacks. None of the original edge that it had before.
Big, giant, sweaty, dangling horse testes just swinging in the goddamn breeze, knocking back and forth like a pair of motherfucking clappers in a giant horse flesh crotch belt.
Sadly, we'll never see a Saints Row game that captures the charm of the originals, at least not for a very long time. Volition has proved they just don't have what it takes anymore to capture what made Saints Row so great in the first place. But at the time of recording, Saints Row the Third with all the DLC is on sale right now on Steam for less than $8. Much more bang for your buck than you'll get from this turd. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like as it does help out the channel a lot, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss another video. And let me know what you think of the Saints Row reboot down in the comments below. Did you enjoy it, or are you like me and are just left wanting more? Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.